Hi everybody, welcome to day 5 of Steph's Take live stream series, where I feature 2 books through the lens of the accountability evangelist. The first book is John C. Maxwell's Ethics 101, and then we're going to talk about Booker T. Washington's autobiography, Up from Slavery. So first, Ethics 101. So main message here, among others, is that ethics are not circumstantial. If you have good ethics, they should apply across all situations, all personas, at work, at home, in the community. Problem is, in a lot of cases, people decide what to do based on what's best in the moment. And that's a bit of an issue, because what happens is we end up with a double standard. John Maxwell says, people's natural inclination is to be easy on themselves, judging themselves according to their good intentions, while holding others to a higher standard and judging them by their worst actions. So you can see how that's probably going on right now in the world and really all the time. And it's really, really hard to fight because it's a natural tendency. But if you're committed to ethics, that's the thing you have to remind yourself. Now, Maxwell does give us a tool that you already know about, I'm sure, to help us with this. So he asserts that the golden rule is really useful as an ethical guideline, is really the simplest ethical guideline. He says, asking the question, how would I like to be treated in this situation, is an integrity guideline for any situation. So when we talk about being consistent across situations, we're really talking about authenticity, which is something really important for leaders. And when I speak about leaders, anytime I speak about leaders in any of these videos, I'm referring to leadership of anyone, including yourself, right? So leadership actually starts with leading yourself, and that's what accountability is all about. So you don't have to be a titled leader for this to apply to you. People look to your behavior. That's what makes you a leader. All right, let's see. The next thing I wanted to cover is a quote about accountability, because of course I have to weave accountability into everything. So again, from Maxwell, nothing helps to keep a person honest like accountability. Integrity is the foundation of a person's life, and accountability is the cornerstone. It gives teeth to our pledge to live by high ethical standards. So is that something that's easy to do? No, it's not. It's simple, meaning it's pretty straightforward. As he said, you just think about, how do people want to be treated in this situation? And let me just say a comment right now about that. So the golden rule has been superseded, I suppose, by the platinum rule in some circles. And because of Maxwell's book, I just want to bring your attention back to the golden rule and why that's such a fundamental thing before you get to the platinum rule. So for those who aren't familiar with what's called the platinum rule is not to treat others how you want to be treated or would like to be treated in a situation, but to treat them how they would like to be treated. And I think that's very valid. In fact, they're both valid. But I would recommend that you start with the golden rule, because that's hard enough as it is to remember all the time. The nice thing is, if it's just really one line, how would I like to be treated in this situation? You say it over and over, remind yourself of that. Again, it's simple but not easy. I find myself forgetting that quite frequently, frankly. So reminding myself of that over and over gives it a better chance that I'm actually going to execute on my intentions. Then you can move to the platinum rule, which is kind of a higher level advanced version, more like situational leadership, where you're really putting yourself in the other person's shoes, because just because something works for you doesn't mean that it's going to work for them. But again, back to ethics, the key is thinking about, how do I want to be treated, right? How are my actions going to impact this person? How are they going to feel after I say something to them, after I take this action? If you consider that in advance, you'd probably think twice about doing some of the things you've done before. Even the most well-intentioned people fall into that trap. So golden rule is a great rule to follow. All right, let's move on to Up from Slavery from Booker T. Washington. This is a great autobiography. It's a really nice read. There are so many gems in this book. I have only flagged today for you 5 quotes, but the whole thing is really a collection of quotes and just great, great stuff. So I highly recommend it. I'm going to start with this one. I resolve to let no obstacle prevent me from putting forth the highest effort to fit myself to accomplish the most good in the world. That is just so inspiring, right? I mean, those of you who know his story would know that he didn't exactly grow up in perfect circumstances, but he made things happen for himself for the good of the world. And I think that's the greatest message really for all of us, because we all grew up in different circumstances. I myself grew up in humble circumstances, not to the extent that Booker did. But, you know, we didn't have a ton of extra things growing up. But that didn't mean that we shouldn't be making the most of it and holding ourselves to a high standard. In fact, when I was thinking about this book, and I haven't read this book for about 7 years, so I had to go back to my highlights as usual to kind of remind myself of some of the key moments that caught my eye. The one I did remember from memory was this one. People would excuse us for our poverty, for our lack of comforts and conveniences, but they would not excuse us for our dirt. So he was talking about, you know, keeping things clean. When I was growing up, my sister in particular was adamant about keeping a clean house, and I think that was really important for us, you know, because we had just a very basic small house, and a lot of people around us had basic small houses, and, you know, a lot of people didn't have a lot of money. You know, we got free school lunches that we qualified for. But all of that doesn't mean that we can't rise up above our circumstances and do something with it. That didn't mean we couldn't keep our house clean, right? I think sometimes we just kind of lump it all together and say, oh, well, can't do anything about this. This is my situation. But again, back to Maxwell's point, ethics are not based on the situation, right? If they're your person, they're consistent across everything. And in order to make them consistent, you have to work at it all the time. And that may seem like a huge burden, but it is actually, in my opinion, a gift, which I think is what Booker is getting at. Let me read another one from him. I have begun everything with the idea that I could succeed, and I never had much patience with the multitudes of people who are always ready to explain why one cannot succeed. Again, another great accountability message. You can't make excuses, right? If you don't want to put in the effort to have a certain circumstance happen in your favor, then don't, right? But there is a way to do most things, but it requires hard work, and most people aren't willing to do that unless it's something that's really meaningful to them. So you have to find that thing that's really meaningful to you. And Booker had several of those things going on in his life. And as I said, and I'll quote him now, nothing ever comes to one that is worth having except as a result of hard work. And I say this all the time to my children. I have it as my #1 affirmation of the day. Hard work pays off. And it doesn't necessarily pay off right away, so you have to be patient. And patience, as you know, is a virtue. It is something I have worked on my entire life. I'm getting better at it. But because I'm so ambitious, I want things to happen tomorrow, and they don't. But eventually, they do happen. You know, I'm only now, or most recently, starting to see the fruits of my labor that I started almost a decade ago when I really got into the concept of continuous learning and digging into new concepts and new people, all under the umbrella of how is this going to help me lift up other people. And it's really been exciting. And again, it's a long journey. It's not over. In fact, it's just starting in some ways, but I kind of feel like I'm in the middle of it. But it's just a really rewarding thing. So I would never want anyone to feel like doing the right thing and working hard isn't worth it. It's totally worth it. It's not a burden. It's not a slog. You know, good things come to people who do that. As Booker says, my whole life has largely been one of surprises. I believe that any man's life will be filled with constant, unexpected encouragements of this kind, if he makes up his mind to do his level best each day of his life, that is, tries to make each day reach as nearly as possible the high-water mark of pure, unselfish, useful living. Wow, that's something. Now, if you're reading that or hearing that thinking, I don't know if I can do that all the time, every day, I don't know that anyone can, frankly. But if you don't aspire to do it, you won't do it at all. You have to keep it in your mind, keep after it. You're going to make mistakes. So what? That's how you learn. You just keep going. The other thing that you should know is when you hold yourself to such a high standard, in both cases of these books, you know, people aren't always going to love that. The reason is because I think Maxwell is the one who said it, you're a reflection of them. You're a reflection of, you hold the mirror up and you show yourself making really tough choices, and other people see that and they don't feel like they can do it. It makes them feel bad. So they encourage you to not do that. They want to see you not be ethical so they can feel better about themselves not being ethical. And that's not a judgment on them. That's just natural, human tendency. It's the same thing. Another analogy that I like to use with that is when you're trying to eat healthy and other people around you aren't, and you're eating your salads and your protein and all that, and people are like, oh, come on, just have a milkshake, and they put the pressure on you. It's like, why do they care, right? It's not, who cares if you have a salad or a milkshake? The reason they care is because you're reminding them that they aren't keeping healthy habits. So the same thing applies to ethics. So you need to know that, again, it's not easy, but it is simple. At various times in my life when I've upheld these standards, I'm known in my family and my workplace as a standard of ethics, and I'm really proud of that. But I have to tell you, it's not always been wonderful, because I've been admired and I've been resented, and sometimes at the same time. But I have to keep going because this is so important. We need lots of people like this who are convicted about their ethical standards to help other people thrive, because that's, in my opinion, why we exist. So I just want to leave you with that message today. I hope you found it inspirational, and I invite you to stick with me for the rest of the live stream series. That's it for now. I'll see you next time.